This is Kissing Frogs, a podcast about relationships and how they change us. I'm your host, Dr. Molly Burritz, a clinical psychologist specializing in relationships and women's mental health. With my guests, we'll share personal, heartfelt stories about love and loss, from the first spark to the messy middle and whatever comes next. So let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to Kissing Frogs. I'm your host, Dr. Molly Burritz. Have you ever taken a huge leap of faith for a relationship without really having enough information to justify the risk? Today, I'm joined by Dr. Patrice Lagoy. She's a psychologist and the host of the podcast Like-Minded with Dr. Patrice. And Dr. Patrice shares the story of a young love that led her to make a life-changing decision. She left school, she gave up her scholarship, and she moved across the country for a relationship that ultimately never got off the ground. So today we're going to explore how youthful optimism can cause us to overlook red flags. And we're going to talk about why filling in the blanks with hope instead of earned trust can lead us astray. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how you come back from a heartbreak like that. So if you've ever made a huge mistake in love because you just did not have the experience to know better, then this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Dr. Patrice, so grateful that you're here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here as well.
So you wear multiple hats, professionally.
Yes.
You're an international psychologist. You're a licensed marriage and family therapist. You have your own podcast, Like-Minded with Dr. Patrice. And I love having thought leaders like you on here who are willing actually to talk about their own personal experiences because
Right.
it's a totally different ballgame.
It totally is. I mean, we get very comfortable asking other people very personal questions and, not so much answering them ourselves. But, I think that all of the experience that we have shape who we are in our professional roles as well as our personal roles.
Yeah. So I understand, and I know very little in advance because I'm here for the ride, and that's how I want it to be. But I understand that you're going to be telling us a little bit about a relationship with someone that you were in before you met your husband that impacted long-term, not only your relationship with your husband, but actually your relationship with your son. And that's the teaser that I have and that I want to give the audience.
Yes.
And so why don't you tell us a little bit about... Tell me about the space and the time and the chapter of your life that you were in. Set the stage for us when you even meet this person.
Yes.
Who were you at this time?
And I think that it's such a good question because I think that a lot of it is like trying to figure out who I was because it was right at the beginning of college. So going away from home for the first time, you meet someone, you're like, oh, everything's heightened. I feel like for you at that time, because you're young, there's all these new experiences, different environments. And I think that, this person that I met, he was seemed like a very sensitive, kind of poetic kind of guy, different than anyone I'd ever dated. And I was in a space where I really wanted to experience life, the good, the bad, but you're very, at least I was very positive and optimistic at that point, you know? And I think that leaves you open to a lot of different experiences.
Yeah. Positive or negative.
Right. Right. Being open leaves you open to both.
Yeah. So you're in a really expansive time in your life. And what I'm hearing, sort of the undercurrent of what I'm hearing is that you were excited and open, but also maybe naive.
Yeah, I probably didn't think that I was, right? We hardly ever think that we actually are. And then maybe in hindsight, you realize, yes, a little bit naive, maybe ignoring some signs, there's a little bit of, I guess probably would say now, maybe some love bombing, but at the time it was oh, this is exciting. This is what an adult relationship is.
Yeah. So this person was really sensitive and poetic. That was different from the guys you had dated in high school.
It was. And I think that because I was young, but he was a little bit older, it also felt okay, this is a mature adult relationship that felt like my first adult relationship, And I think in a lot of ways it was because I was away from home. I was kind of, doing what I wanted to do, for the most part, right? There was no curfews. There was no one really to answer to in that way. And so I really did, get to say yes to a lot of different things and a lot of different experiences. So I think expansive is exactly the right word.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us how you met this person. Drop us back into that moment.
At a college party, we met through friends because he was a little bit older and he wasn't even going to school where I was going. But, we just kind of hit it off right away. I just felt like he was a really interesting, smart person. And I felt that he treated me like as an equal, even though he was a little bit older. So it's all like very, very exciting, Dr. Molly.
Yeah. And how did the meeting at a college party turn into the next step?
Yeah. I mean, he asked me out, like I said, we hit it off. So we talked quite a bit that night. And he asked me out. We started dating, pretty regularly shortly after that, and just the two of us. And it was a lovely relationship in a lot of ways. I think that as time went on, he moved to another city. And I think I was still kind of holding on to that idea of what the relationship was, and it was not the reality, right? And so he moved to another city. Eventually, I ended up transferring schools and moving there too. And when I look at it now, I realize it was not because there was any promise from him that he wanted the relationship to continue. It was more what I couldn't let go of and like my hopes maybe for the relationship. So yes, so took some steps that I do not recommend.
Okay.
Doing for other people.
All right, let's dial in here. I think this is so important. So to give the listener context, how far away is this city?
I mean, a flight,
flight,
yes, yeah, or a very long drive.
Okay.
So yes, it was a big move to make. Also, because I guess I was thinking of it like, okay, well, this is the relationship, and like we're gonna work it out, and everything's gonna be fine. But when I think about it now, I'm like, I also uprooted like my whole life, where I was going to school, starting over with like going to a different university because of a idea or like a hope really, that I had with this person.
How did he tell you that he was moving?
I think pretty casually, I'd probably say, like there were maybe hints of it before, as I remember, but not solid. This is what's happening until not too long before he moved. So I, again, I think this was more like my ideas, maybe because I was naive and I was, it was young love and that kind of thing, that it wasn't that he said, okay, this is my plan. This is what I'd like you to do. Like, how do we work this out? It wasn't that kind of discussion, it was definitely in my head.
There wasn't a direct ask from him for you to join him.
No. And I mean, I should say too, that even before this, like there'd been like some kind of like ideas, like maybe it's like cheating, like nothing, really substantiated. But, it wasn't like confirmed we stayed together, that kind of thing. But there were some, maybe some things where I was like, oh, like I heard that, someone said you were here with this other person. And they'd be like, no, definitely not. Like I would never do that. So it was never anything proven, but definitely some seeds of doubt.
Did that happen more than once?
I think it probably happened twice.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It was a while ago, but I think it probably happened twice.
So it was hearsay that you brought to him.
Right.
And he had denied.
And I think that probably I wanted to be denied, right?
Yeah.
I think that definitely feeds into it. I wouldn't have wanted to believe it. So if he says no, then I'm like, great, good.
Yeah.
that's what I want to believe.
You weren't panicking. You wanted the answer to be that he was trustworthy. Right. And so you took it at face value.
Absolutely.
You didn't explore it deeper.
Right. That's
either
right.
with him or within yourself.
Yes. Definitely not within myself, But no, I didn't push it with him because I didn't want that to be the case.
Yeah. So you're painting a picture here of someone yourself, who has a vision of what you want the relationship to be. And you are sort of massaging the details of your real life experience to match the idea of what you are wanting it to be.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, willfully ignoring things or digging deeper, not that I think I should have been someone who was just like suspicious of everyone. I didn't want to become that person either. Yeah. But I think a little bit more like, okay, this is more than once.
A little more discernment.
A little bit more than what I was showing, but it was definitely by choice.
Yeah. Well, you were also very young.
I was. I kind of thought of myself like, I'm not that kind of person who would, let herself be cheated on. So again, I don't want it to be true. So, I'm going to to go with it not being true.
Yeah.
But, I think really the turning point happened when he did move. And I did go down there and like realize eventually, like, okay, we are not on the same page. This is not something that he wanted me to come and do necessarily. And he was
Okay.
definitely like seeing other people had like, was thinking of it as like, this was our relationship maybe more casual than what I was thinking of it as.
Okay.
And so was dating other people there. And, Dr. Molly, like when I think about it now, I'm like, okay, there were signs that he was maybe the kind of person who was not going to be satisfied in a monogamous relationship.
Wow. Tell us the
Yeah, I
signs.
mean, I think that there was a lot of maybe what I read as like sensitive and poetic, like a lot of like insecurities, and needing like more reassurances, about like, okay, yes, I would never cheat on you. I would never do these things. And I look at it now and I'm like, oh, it's like, that's projection. Like you were worried about me doing the things you were doing, but I didn't see it that way at the time. It's really seeing it more now. And even like when I think about relationship, like with his mom and like not having a good relationship with his dad. And like, it felt like he'd been like parentified in a lot of ways and maybe had maybe like a not great idea of what like a man is or what a man is in a relationship, and like was maybe copying that kind of behavior.
Sometimes when someone is insecure and they are questioning you and your fidelity and there's nothing to be questioned, sometimes what's happening is that person is actually projecting their own experience onto you.
Yes.
So they themselves have done something untrustworthy. And so they are projecting, imagining that you have done the same.
Yes.
And this isn't true for all people.
Right.
Some people have insecurities and it's not a manifestation or a projection.
Right. Yes.
But your sense in retrospect is that this is what was going on.
I think so. I think that he was seeing that maybe as like, oh, if I were in that situation, that would be what I would do.
Yes.
So that must be what you were doing.
Yes.
And I was not seeing it that way at all. I was just like, oh, I would never do that. And it wasn't obsessive, but it was enough that I was wondering, like, why would you think that I would even do this? It wouldn't. That was for me not the way that I dealt with any kind of feelings that I was having, or any kind of issues that were coming up, any kind of insecurities. That would not be the way that I would have dealt with it. So it seemed very foreign to me,
right,
for someone to ask me that. And then I realized, okay, for you, if you were feeling insecure, if you were feeling jealous or whatever the things are, that is what you might do. You might try to make yourself feel better with someone else, And so to your point, it's not everyone, but in that situation, that's what that was. And I didn't understand at the time. So it was strange. Why would you ask me that? Like I already told you no, and I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't cheat on you.
It felt so incongruent with who
really
you were.
did. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, of course, you didn't show up and surprise him in this other city.
No, that's
you
not,
had
not
to have
advisable.
told him. And so I'm imagining, please tell me if I'm getting it wrong. I'm imagining he didn't say, don't come.
No.
How did he respond?
No, he was like, okay, great, like come. But I think that my idea of yes, come was like, yes, come and we'll be together. And it was just like, oh yeah, if you want to live here, you should totally come here and, and live in the city. And it was not the same thing. So it wasn't that he said, don't come. I would not have gone down there. Yeah. I think it just was the other things that were not said that I imagined. I filled in some of those blanks myself, and it was not the truth.
You filled in the blanks. And I love hearing you say that, because I know that the people who are listening right now, a light bulb is going off for them. And haven't we all done this, Dr. Patrice?
Yes.
We filled in the blanks with the narrative that we wished that it would be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think sometimes it's funny because, kind of a little bit going into, and we can go back, but a little bit thinking about my relationship with my husband now, which is so wonderful and like very stable and very open. And when I fill in the blanks with our relationship, it's like with assuming the best of intentions, because there is a track record of that, right? Assuming that
you have something to base it on.
There's something much more solid to base it on. And I was trying to base it on something like that was not solid at all, in the past. But that's why I don't want to think of it as totally like as a negative thing. Sometimes you can have that shorthand because it's been earned, and that goodwill and that trust has been earned, right? And but not always. And I think the work is like recognizing when it hasn't been earned.
That's right. That's such a good distinction. And that in fact, as couples therapists, we encourage couples
Right.
to fill in the blanks with
Yes.
positive
Right.
conclusions. We encourage our people to give one another the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
But of course, that's rooted in the premise of earned
Yes.
trustworthiness.
Yes. So true. So true. Yes. That's why it's like, it's the way that I did it was not great because it was not based on enough, fact and like a solid foundation of relationship.
Yeah.
But it's not an inherently bad instinct.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to, like not like shame that person, because it's like, that was who you are. It is who you are.
Yeah.
But then you have to just make sure the people around you are like worthy of
Yes.
that.
Yes. And to me, this comes back in part to your age and experience.
Yeah.
Right? That you believed in the best of people and you didn't necessarily have the experience to know, no, you really have to have an intentional, co-created plan to build a relationship, that you can't do it on a dream or a hope or unspoken expectations, that it needs to be mutual and co-created.
Yes, yes. And it was that time, and but it's like how lovely, how beautiful it is when you can do that. And it's very like safe, and like the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So holding both of those things is true. Developing the discernment that comes with time and wisdom and sometimes age, to really know the difference.
Right. And sometimes, having to blow up your life a little bit, to do that, because then over time, once I realized like, oh, we're not on the same page. And I had become close with like friends and like family that were nearby and everything. So I think I really was like, oh, I'm part of his life, but we were not to be together. Like it was not the kind of relationship that I wanted to be in. So then like, moving back and starting over, it required a lot, and it wasn't, I don't know. I was going to say something that I don't know that's altogether true. I was going to say it's not very smart, but I don't think it's that. It was naive. It was naive. And I learned, I definitely learned from that. And I think that, recognizing, okay, when people are showing you that like maybe they're not ready for the kind of relationship that you want to be in, or that they're not going to be able to be the kind of partner that you need them to be, and recognizing that and like believing them, and not trying to change people, right? I think it's huge. You can really get stuck there trying like with someone's potential.
Been there, there multiple times. Yeah,
all of us have.
You use the expression "blowing up your life," and I'm just putting myself in your shoes, thinking about like little 18-year-old you. And what it must have been like to arrive in a new place with an expectation and a hope and a dream and a desire, and find out that you were alone in it.
I definitely, it was like very much a learning experience because I left my school, like I left the program that I was in, I left like a scholarship. It was like broke. I'm like, I got to find a job. Like I've got to find a place to live because I was thinking, okay, we'll be together. And he was like,
you have a safety net.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I guess you should live here if you want. Like, where are you going to live? And I was like, oh no, that's not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
So yes, I thought I had a safety net. And that experience of doing something like, maybe like a little questionable, and having to just rely on myself and figure it out, I think, it gives you some like grit.
Hell yes.
It does, because it's like, it's not that I could call my parents and be like, oh yes, I left this program and I did this. And they'd be like, why would you do that?
What did your parents say?
I was like, oh, I'm going into this other program. Like, I did not tell them that I was going there for a guy at all. But then also they were like, but you had this, you had a scholarship here, you had this program.
Yeah.
And like, we can't help you. Like, it's like, oh, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I did figure it out, And so I always have that experience. Like, it was tough. It was very like lonely and scary to do that. And then to try to like reinstate kind of like the life that I had before and kind of like go back and rebuild, but I did it.
That's what you did, is you went back.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And that was definitely the best thing for me. Like that, he was the reason that I had moved. And even if I could have figured out a life there, I didn't have any ties to it. There was no reason. It was him,
It was him.
Yes. And so that didn't actually feel right to me.
Yeah.
So I did end up going back, but it's like, that was a lot of work too.
Yeah.
And, I figured it out pretty much on my own.
Yeah. It does speak to the level of grit that you have and tenacity.
Sometimes you don't know it until you need it, right?
That's right. That's right. And you know what it also makes me think about? It makes me think about that expression, the longer you stay on a train going in the wrong direction, the more costly it is to get back home.
Right, right.
And
But I spent longer on that train.
let's go there. How
Right.
long were you on the train?
I mean, I think that this was probably over a period of about a year.
Yeah.
It was a while, because I think, I love that about the train, because I had moved. It was such a big step, that then I
Yes.
had to say, like, am I really willing to turn right back
Yes.
around and give this up, or do I want to try to figure out if there's a way to make it
Yes.
work? I mean, I'm sure you work with couples, and where someone is, isolated in some way, and or they've, stepped away from their family or friends, like you might stay in that relationship longer. It's like, this is what I have. This is
That's
what I'm
right.
betting everything on
That's
this
right.
working,
That's right.
So I think it was not as extreme as that, but it was a form of that. I did leave, and I was leaving for something, so I wanted to try to make that something work, and
Naturally.
so, yeah.
I still have a tremendous amount of respect for, the choice that you made then, which was, even though it took a year, you still, righted the course, and I think that takes a tremendous amount of bravery.
Yeah, thank you.
To really see the truth and to take action, and, one foot in front of the other,
Yeah.
and make your way back home.
Right. Yeah, and I think I really did not want to make that return journey with bitterness.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and I think I was just kind of like, I didn't take it on myself, but I was like, okay, I maybe, should have thought this through. Maybe should have had some real conversations
Yeah.
before doing all of that. But, what an adventure. And at least now I know how tough I am, and I
Yeah.
think I have carried that with me. I mean, for, decades now,
Yeah.
really carried that. I feel like I'm tough. I feel like I can get through what kind of comes my way.
Yeah.
So I definitely learned that from that relationship and that whole experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say, there are no mistakes as long as you learn the lesson.
Right. Right.
Because then your suffering isn't wasted,
Exactly. Yeah. And I kind of mentioned it before about how that relationship then, carried into with my husband, holding on
Yes,
to that.
I definitely
Right.
want to know all
Yeah.
about this.
No, but holding on to that benefit of the doubt, having conversations. I mean, I think a lot of it has helped since, I went back to school and studied marriage and family therapy. And I don't therapize people in my life. I do not do that. I make it a point not to. But I do learn from things. I do learn about, communication and how that needs to work, but how different people receive things. So if, with my husband and I, my family, very open, very affectionate, always said, I love you, that kind of thing. He's British. And then I was like, you have to say I love you. You can't just say love to you. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. It's you have to say the things.
Yeah.
And so when we would have conversations, I would say oh, I said what I need to say. I've gotten off my chest. There's no resentment because I feel like I've actually said the things. And I think his upbringing was more you kind of keep things more close to the vest, but then you hold on to them, right? There's no releasing of things. But we are able to have very open conversations where it's you can look at me and I can look okay, that's what's going on there for you. It doesn't mean you don't want to communicate with me. It just means our communication styles are different. And where can we meet in the middle? So that the having had that kind of experience before where there was not open communication, and it definitely took a toll, right? And then also studying, what we study and sitting with people, you really learn a lot about what do I need to do? How do I need to be in this relationship? How do I need my partner to be with me in this relationship?
Yeah. So if you hadn't had this difficult and painful lesson about you really have to directly communicate with someone to make sure you're on the same page.
Yes.
It could have been that you found yourself in relationship with your husband, and with your different communication styles, you would have accepted that.
Right.
You would not have tried to cross the bridge and
Yes.
understand him and get what you need, really.
Right. Even though you have that feeling, you still have that instinct. So before, I would say I can tell you're upset about something because it's clear, there's tension, but he wasn't comfortable having those conversations.
Yeah.
So we had to, to break that down. Okay, why are you like this? Why are you like that?
Yeah.
And without judgment, just kind of wanting to, understand,
Yeah.
just more for curiosity. Okay, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense that that's the way you would be. And how do we want now our relationship to be?
Yeah.
Do we want to keep the way that we were raised and how we saw our parents communicate, or do we want to do something a little bit different?
Yeah. I'm thinking about how the experience of intimate rejection in my life when I was younger really became such a personal wound for me.
Mm.
And, you know, how that has showed up so much in my life since then.
Yeah. In
It,
what ways? Sorry,
yeah,
you got two therapists. Everyone's gonna
yeah,
ask questions.
yeah, no, of course. You know, I had a relationship with someone who I believed was the love of my
Mm.
life, and he didn't know if he ever wanted to get married.
Ah.
And he didn't know and couldn't commit about
Mm.
marriage, which to me I interpreted as he didn't know if he wanted to marry me,
I
you
see.
know? And
Yeah.
it was very, very painful. And I
Yes.
felt not chosen.
Mhm.
And I tolerated things that were absolutely intolerable with the hope that he would choose
Right.
me
Right.
until I could no longer tolerate it.
Mm.
And that rejection really has impacted me so much in my life. And at the time, I really took it personally, like I am unlovable. There's something
Mm.
about me that he didn't want for the rest of
Mm.
his life. And I've really had to work through that in my
Right.
life. And
Right.
I'm wondering, I'm not hearing that, at least outright, as part of your story with
Mm.
this guy from the
Yeah.
move. How did you or didn't you um, internalize this
Mm.
rejection of you've moved all the way there to be with him and then he's, you know, not
Yeah.
taking you seriously?
Yeah, I think that I hadn't thought about it until you're kind of framing it this way,
Mm.
but I think that probably the saving grace was like a very good, solid, loving relationship with my dad, who was
Yeah.
very much like should not let people mistreat you. This is like you are worthy, like you should be treated well.
Yeah.
And not I wouldn't say, I'm like, it wasn't like one of the situations like, oh, daddy's princess and like you're perfect. It wasn't like that. But my dad was always like, you're not better than anyone else, but no one else is that better than you. And that was
Yes.
like something that I always, have kept with me, right? That
Yes.
even though we have moments like where we're like, but I really like him, and maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I can overlook this thing. I think at the end of the day, I did not want nor expect that to be my reality over
Yeah.
time. And so it was hard. It was really hard to understand that situation was not going to become the way that I wanted to. It was not going to
Mhm.
become that dream that I had. And to go back and kind of, start over and everything. But I knew that I didn't want that. I didn't want
Yeah.
that, like the scraps of that relationship.
Yeah. I think that's so important, and that what a beautiful testament to your father and the love
Mm.
he gave you, that you had that sense of self-worth. I love that expression of you are not better than anyone else, but no one is better than you.
Yeah.
And such a gift. And one thing I'm hearing from you that I wish I could say for myself
Mm.
is that you don't feel like you compromised your dignity in trying to chase after this person.
Uh, I don't. I think I probably did feel that at the time that I did.
That you did.
I
Okay.
don't feel it now because we have
Okay.
hindsight,
Yeah.
and you get the benefit of like seeing what your life
Yes.
has become, and you know that
Yes.
everything that's happened has shaped you and like led you towards that moment. But at the time, I was like, oh, like this was a huge mistake. Like it's
Yeah.
embarrassing,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I think I feel very differently about it now.
Yeah.
If I had gotten stuck there, if I'd stayed maybe too long
Yeah.
with that person, maybe I would feel differently about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have had more time to shape me.
Yeah.
But then I was young and I've had great positive relationships since then
Yeah.
that end amicably, and you just wish the best for someone. And so I think that now it's very different, So I
Mhm.
really kind of like the exercise of looking back on this relationship because it was so long ago.
Yeah.
And there's been very, very good things that I can, take from it,
Yes.
or at least take from, the some of the mistakes that I made.
Yes.
And so I think at the time it was embarrassing. It was
Yeah.
it was not good.
Yeah.
To tell people what happened and like what I had thought versus what the reality was.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I'm telling you on this podcast,
Yeah.
it's not embarrassing to me anymore because
Right.
I'm like, I was young and
Yeah.
I was hopeful.
Yes.
And like, that's not a bad thing to be.
That's right. And I'm hearing from you a truly resilient mindset
Mm.
that you are able to view your old self, your younger self,
Yeah.
with compassion. You're able to see the good that came from it.
Mm.
And you're able to, instead of sort of like beating yourself up over, a bad choice that you think maybe cost you a little dignity back in the moment,
A little or a
you know,
lot.
you're really able
Yeah.
to, utilize this healthy, proactive mindset to strategize with
Yeah.
yourself and give yourself compassion for the decision that you made so many years ago when you didn't know better.
No. And I think, when we're talking about it too, I realize I ask other people to do this all day. As a therapist, I'm asking, people to give themselves grace and resilience and understand like the way that you were then was the best way that you could have been.
That's what you could do with what you had at the time.
And so I think, sometimes when I'm sitting with clients and they're talking like, very poorly about themselves, and we do that whole, like, would you say that to your best friend? And like, never, I would never. I'm like, okay, then like, you're going to be the best friend that you have, the one you're never going to be able to get rid of. So that's, the way that you think about yourself, like just with grace, like you would, anyone else that you care about, right?
Yes. And I know people who are listening to this podcast are doing so because they have relationships in their past that bring them pain and suffering. And they're hearing other people's stories and they're seeing parts of themselves. And so I think you're giving such a gift to the audience, which is you have to see and hear and understand your narrative through the eyes of love and compassion, like you are your own best friend.
Right. No, I think it's so important. And we don't do it all the time. It's just such a shortcut to like go to like the negative about ourselves or like assume the worst, and that kind of thing. I was thinking about it when you were saying that you felt like because that person did not want to get married, like that was a rejection of you versus, the institution of marriage, like, but because that's kind of like the way that, a lot of us, we like learn to internalize things.
Yes.
Okay, there's something wrong here. I need to fix it.
The easiest answer is there's something wrong with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, sometimes it's just like, it's not the case. Or maybe there's like a little something, but like maybe it's that person.
Yeah. Maybe it's that person.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the relationship.
Yeah.
And
the timing, like a lot of things.
And maybe it is you.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something about you that isn't a fit for that person, but that is not the same thing as there being something wrong with you.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think the other part of like maybe, the opportunity to heal is that later on, like years later, I was actually probably was not dating when I'd moved, I'd graduated college and that kind of thing. And then he came out for work and he was dating someone else, but was still like, oh, I want to like see you. And like, and I was like, oh yeah. So you were that guy. You were totally that guy. It's like, no, like we're not going to do that.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah. It was always there.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to like villainize this person.
Yeah.
I think at his heart, he is a good person. I think that he was not a good person to be in a relationship because he did not done like the healing work that he needed to do to understand like, how do I want to show up? Like, how do I do it? Can I be honest in like a monogamous relationship? Or am I always going to be searching for something that I'm never really going to be satisfied by? So I think, I've had so many experiences where I put it all together. And again, like, I don't hate this person. I wish him well. I hope he's doing well. I just was like, oh, that was a lot of your stuff that I was like ignoring or maybe didn't have like the vocabulary for like the understanding of what it was or how it even impacts us.
Yes.
But I think he was like going to be one of those like, never satisfied. Right.
Yeah. What phase of your life were you in when he came back and how did that make you feel?
I was probably in my late 20s by then. And, like happy to see him and talk to him and everything. But then like, when you put all the pieces together and realize you're dating someone, you're still like, oh, like, I miss you. I'm like, there is no us. There hasn't been us for years. Like, you don't even know who I am now.
Did that feel even slightly validating to you?
Yeah.
I feel like it would.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it did. It validating and like eye-opening.
Eye-opening.
Sure. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Both of those. So it's like, okay, yeah, it wasn't me. I was like the young naive girl, but like maybe that's fine. But also like you were not going to be a person who I needed you to be, and that's okay because maybe I didn't need to be with the first like, guy that I was like so in love with, at 18, like maybe that's totally fine. I'm glad for it now. But I think kind of, I got the opportunity, which we don't always get in life. And maybe that's why it's also easier for me to understand the narrative around this. I got a lot of opportunities to put things together. Sometimes someone disappears from your life and you have no idea. You never get the validation, right? You never get the opportunity to like put all the pieces together and do, like change the narrative that you had.
Sometimes you really have to find your own closure.
Right.
More often than not, I
Usually
think,
you
Dr.
do.
Patrice.
I know. There's so many times where, people are like, I want closure. I'm like, it's not going to be the satisfying thing that you think it's going to be. I promise you. It hardly ever is. Either that person doesn't have it to give to you or it's not going to be like you imagined, you're still going to feel feel the same and wonder why.
Yes,
And
louder for the people in the back, Dr.
Right?
Patrice.
No, but it's so true. I'm like, you're going to have to do that yourself. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so tell us, you kind of dropped a hint that this relationship impacted or helped transform your relationship with your son.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when I look at someone who, again, I think was a good person, but had these kinds of things, with his father, like with his mother, that to me didn't represent like the kind of attachment style that I think kids need to grow up healthy. It's like, for me, how important it is for my son to see my husband and I not always like agreeing with everything, but always being respectful, like always being able to have a conversation. We're like, oh, I think of it like this. I think of it like that. And we are having, these like modeling what like real communication is like in real time in front of our son. Because I don't think parents always do that. It's just like, if you have a disagreement, it's like, it's over here, like, off to the side.
Yeah.
And
or it's blowing up right in front of you and there's no repair.
And exactly.
Right.
And then you don't learn how to have disagreements. I mean, we don't yell, we don't scream, we don't call names. That's just not the way that we communicate. But I might say like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. Maybe I would have done it differently. I've been like, oh, did you think about that? I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? I didn't think about that. We have those in front of him because look, you get to see they're like, oh, I made this assumption and that wasn't true. And then like, apologies. And it's fine. And everyone's comfortable and no one feels unsafe. No one feels like that they're threatened, and like they don't. So either you avoid conflict because you don't know how to deal with it, or you seek it out because it's familiar. But either way, it's not the way to go forward in a relationship. And I think that seeing someone who maybe had not ever felt like that kind of secure attachment where they could be happy with one person, or if they weren't, at least they could be honest about that.
Yeah.
I think that really has impacted not only my other romantic relationships and like especially my relationship with my husband, but my relationship with my friends. We're very open, very honest with each other, very supportive, very consistent, and I want like for my son to be able to do that kind of thing in the world, like to be able to communicate with people and talk about your feelings and be honest, even if someone's done something that you're unhappy about, be honest in a respectful way.
How old is your son?
He's 9.5.
And how do you see this showing up in his life? He's what, in third grade?
Yeah, he's in third grade. Yeah. I mean, I think he can talk about his feelings like more than, some other kids. Like if something happens, I'd be like, oh, how do you feel? Like, actually, I feel a little jealous. I'm like, that's so great to be able to say that. Yes, I get why you'd feel jealous. Like, they were hanging out together. They had a play date and like you weren't invited. I would feel jealous about that too. That's fine. It's okay to feel those things. I think the problem is like we all feel those things and we don't talk about it. And I think especially like sometimes with little boys, like they're not, allowed that space, you already see them kind of wanting to be like a little bit like tougher than they need to be. And I think, boys in some ways, and I think girls in other ways are like not really given like those tools or that opportunity to be like, oh yeah, like I'm going to put myself first and I'm going to think about my feelings over someone else. And even if that makes you uncomfortable, like this is what we're doing here,
Yeah.
And so I think that just being able to realize how important it is to like show that, like not just say it, right? Not just say these are our values, but to like actually show that in real time. That's what he's going to remember, you know?
I totally agree. I have an 8-year-old son.
Oh, yes.
He's about to turn 8.
Oh, muffin.
And one of my sort of like proudest parenting moments was he has a lot of big feelings and he's learning.
We have big feelings over here too.
Yeah. And I have a lot of big feelings too. So he totally comes by it naturally. And he was really dysregulated and, he's working on his regulation skills. But, other family members do not always parent the way we parent. Okay?
Accurate.
And, someone had said to him something like, you need to calm down or stop crying or something like that. Because when someone's crying hard and they're dysregulated, it's hard to tolerate.
Right.
We want them to stop crying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they said something to that effect, and he cried and he said, I can cry as much as I want.
Oh,
he looked at this
that.
authority figure and said, I can cry as much as I want.
Good for him.
I was so proud of him. And I was like, yes, because that's me.
Yeah.
Because yes, I have told him it is okay to cry. It's important to cry.
Yes.
Tears have cortisol and we get that cortisol out. Cortisol is not good for us in big amounts, And so tears are so useful. And it's like, yes, you can cry as much as you want.
I love that. I love that he was able to say like, no, this is what I need to cry.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, like, because that's not always easy for kids to be able to say that, to like stand up for themselves. But like doesn't sound like it was in a disrespectful way or anything.
No.
It's just like very matter of fact, like, this is what I
Yes.
need. I
Yes.
know this is what I need. Oh, I love that.
I know.
I mean, it is important because I think we all know what happens to people who suppress the feelings. It's not like they go away. You know, they just blow up at the worst times,
That's
maybe,
right.
you know, or like, you know, you're having a conversation and all of a sudden it goes to like 100 and you don't know how you got there. And it's like from, you know, that practice of just holding things in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Oh my God, good for him.
It was a good moment.
Oh, I love that so much.
You know, what I'm really hearing is like that this experience of you filling in the blanks when there wasn't earned connection.
Right.
The way that you have sort of internalized this, you know, failure into something that has really been for your growth and evolution is that direct communication and conflict resolution is an essential part of your life now in every relationship.
Yes,
you're
absolutely.
talking it through, you're seeing if people are on the same page. You're teaching these skills to your son, not only directly, but in what you model for him in your relationship with your husband.
Yes. You know, it's funny you're making me think of like another situation because as I said, my kiddo has big feelings as well, you know, and there was something that happened and he was upset and he's like, Mom, you're supposed to understand. You should know everything about me. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I mean, I didn't in the moment because I was like, I'm here with you. But later on, I was thinking about that. I was like, God, we really get ourselves into trouble, like imagining that people love us and they can read our minds. I'm like, but I can't because I haven't been with you all day. I don't know what else happened. So you have to tell me, you know, I do know a lot about you, but I don't know what's going on right now. So we have to talk about it, you know? And so, but because that's like, oh, like you're thinking you are my mom. You've always been with me. You know me so well. You should know why I'm upset in this moment. I'm like, oh, I don't understand why in this moment this is making you really upset. And I feel like I mean, you probably have this conversation with like couples all the time too. I'm like, just because someone loves you doesn't mean they could read your mind, you know? It doesn't, and we can't expect people to do that. It's not a good use of our energy.
Yes. Not only do I have this conversation with couples, I have this conversation with myself, Dr. Patrice, because I for sure think that, you know, my husband is going to pick out the perfect gift that's going to reflect exactly what I, you know what, and it's just, you know, for me, it's about kind of finding and walking the fine line because I don't want to front load all the work and do everything for him so that he doesn't have to really think about my needs. You know, I want this and I want this and get it on this day and this way. And like, that's very, feels too much and too controlling, you know, and I want to be able to loosen my grip on the wheel. But I also think the opposite of that is when we don't advocate for ourselves, we stay quiet, yet we have these high expectations that our needs will be met and that we will be known without expressing ourselves and that is the ultimate form of love.
Yes.
To be known without expressing myself.
It is so wild to even like, but you're right. I think that's so much a part of like what we are fed and what feels like, that's so romantic. Like this person knows me. And I'm like, how could they? And you're not going to be the same person anyway, because none of us are.
Yes.
We're all, our expectations are expressions of love, you know, like what we think a relationship is supposed to be. They're all going to be very different. And that's fine.
Yes.
As long as we acknowledge that,
Yes.
you know?
It's like help a brother out, help a sister out, and like tell them what you want. Right. You don't have to drive the car for them, but you need to tell them, hey, I'd like to go here.
Right.
Would you drive?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Be a good passenger.
Yeah. It's funny, like with the gifts, I do think that's such a good example that you use. Like for me, I usually know what I want, and I have like a list of things. You know, it's like, oh, I'm looking at this
too.
bag
I have
or whatever.
one on my phone.
Yes, and so if it's like a big, you know, if it's a birthday or if it's the holidays, and if my husband asks me what I want, I was like, here's a list of 10. Get me any of those. That's the surprise, because he's like, that's not. There's no surprise. I'm like, it's a surprise. I don't know which one you'll pick, but I'm happy. At least you know I'm happy with any of these. And maybe for you that doesn't feel romantic, but for me, it's very romantic to get exactly what I want. You know, and so I don't. That is not. That kind of feels like a good balance of, you know, like you said, labor, but it's going to be up to you. Like some people don't want to do that, or some people want very specific things. But I think just believing, you know, your partner when they say, no, this is what I'd like. You know, this is how I'd like to handle this. And then it's like, it's not stressful for you. You're not trying to guess, you know, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to have to, you know, like, how am I going to handle this if I don't really, if I like that. But I think it's such a good example because we do kind of get fed these ideas of like what romance looks like, what relationships are supposed to look like, and how someone's supposed to make you feel and read your mind and all those kinds of things. It's like, it's not working for anyone.
Yes,
It really isn't.
You seem to have a tremendous amount of resolve and healing and peace around this, frog that you kissed.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, if you could say anything to him today, like with total freedom from repercussion or consequence, is there anything left that you might want to say to him?
That's interesting. I don't think so, other than that, when you can kind of get to that point where you're not, I'm not blaming, he is who he was, like, again, probably doing the best he could. And I didn't say stuck there, but it gives you a lot more room for grace. Like, I hope that he figured out why, he wouldn't be satisfied in a relationship with like just one person. Like, I hope that for him, because I think this is a good person. And I had some wonderful times with, and I've learned a lot from. But I don't feel like I need anything from him to move on with my life. Like, I've definitely moved on with my life, and I can look back, at the good times with fondness, and the bad times I'm like, well, like, learned a lot there, but not that I need anything from him. I just hope that, he's like done some of the work that he needs.
What would you say to someone listening out there who has maybe prematurely taken a big swing in a relationship, and now they're faced with some disappointment? What might you say to them?
I mean, I think that, kind of the way that you were talking about it earlier, Dr. Molly, was really lovely. And like holding on to, that good parts of that, like, that's wonderful to like believe in love and want the best. And I think the other part of it that comes with experience is like also like notice the person in front of you and believe them. If they're not giving you the signs that they're ready for a relationship, okay, like that should be paid attention to.
Yeah.
You can't just kind of steamroll your way past it or hope your way past through that or past that. And so, I think that not saying it's the biggest mistake to believe in love and to take the big swing. That's not it either.
Yeah.
It's more like, who are you going to take the big swing for?
Yeah. I can't think of a better note to end on than that, which is take the big swing, but think about who you're going to take that big swing for.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Patrice.
you. This has been really fun and like made me think of a lot of things I haven't thought about in a while. I love your questions. Thank you for this.
Glad. Will you please tell the listeners how they can support you and where they can find you?
Sure. I'm on social at Dr. Patrice Lagoy, and I have a mental health podcast that blends mental health and pop culture, and that is Like Minded with Dr. Patrice, and it's available on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Molly Burritz. This is Kissing Frogs, and that's our time for today. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Kissing Frogs with Dr. Molly Burritz. I want to hear your thoughts on it, especially if you loved it. So please leave a comment on Spotify or rate and review the show on Apple. Don't forget to subscribe while you're there. And if you think that a friend would enjoy this podcast, please share the episode with them. That's the absolute best way to help the show grow. You can find me on socials at Kissing Frogs Pod and at Dr. Molly Burritz. That's DrMollybUrrets. See you next time.